Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 5 questions in about 12 or 15 minutes. And I am very grateful and excited to welcome our guest today. This is Michael Peters. He is the CEO of Lazarus Alliance and Continuum GRC, both of them out of Scottsdale, Arizona. Michael, thank you so much for joining me today. What would you like our audience to know about what you work on as far as, I know it's cybersecurity, but give us a little bit more.
Hey, Sean, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. Well, what I can tell you is the companies, while both focused on cybersecurity services, audit, compliance, that risk assessments, things of that nature, the primary focus has always been on what we refer to as proactive cybersecurity. So this is the less glamorous side of cybersecurity, where we're turning the rocks, we're examining the controls, looking for problems to, close those gaps, mitigate the risks, reduce the risks, doing things to help our customers eliminate possibilities for cyber criminals to or people that with malintent, if you will, to harm our organizations, steal our intellectual property, destroy the businesses that we put our lives into. So that's our focus. We like to remain sort of the silent, back in the shadows doing our work, rather than oh my God, we've been breached and now there's cleanup and litigation and things like that. We work to avoid those sort of things. So we're perfectly happy to be the unsung heroes behind the scenes. But so that's a little bit about our focus on the Lazarus Alliance side. Since the year 2000. We've been focused on these proactive services, so audit, compliance, just from a sheer offering. I really can't think of another company in the world that has our level of accreditation and certification capabilities. So it's kind of a great place to be. On the Continuum GRC side, along the way, doing providing services to our global clientele, we wanted to, work smarter, not harder, reduce manual labor and the things that are oh so exciting about this line of work. And so, we looked for a platform. Everybody was using spreadsheets and manual processes and stuff. So that's where Continuum GRC was born. So a few years of incubation, battle testing, the platform. In 2015, we spun that off as Continuum GRC, which it's operated independently since. So that's just a little bit about us.
Well, that's great. Thank you. And I know that we talked a little bit before we started the recording, but cybersecurity is an ever-growing industry that's not going to go away. And I love the fact that you're trying to stay one step ahead of the bad guys out there, because if you can find those holes before they do, that you're going to do a lot of good. So well done, and thank you for your efforts to keep us all safe. Appreciate that. Well, let's jump to our questions then and get started here. Question number one. Michael, as you've been building your business, what's one challenge that you've overcome that you're really proud of?
As an entrepreneur, I'd have to say, and I'd venture a guess this is probably pretty universal, but it's effectively making the leap. Entrepreneurs are everywhere. Today's dreams without resolute action become tomorrow's regrets. So being brave, being bold, putting yourself out there to make that idea happen. That's really the big challenge. Of course, you have to have an idea that people want to pay for. It's wonderful to have, oh, I got a great idea, but nobody else cares. Sometimes you're ahead of the mass thinking. So you have ideas that maybe it takes a little while for everybody else to catch up. So you have to come up with ways of promoting those ideas and things like that. But but basically, you have some kind of concept, something that is effectively marketable, and having the inner strength to make that leap, to make that happen. That's that's really what I consider the big challenge.
I love that. And it's a big leap when you go into entrepreneurship, taking that leap from the full-time job. And for some people, they've never worked a full-time job, so it's an easier process for them to take that leap. But there's always a leap of faith there that you have to go and make that happen. So I love that. That's awesome. Question number 2, how can a leader foster creativity within the team or the company?
So I don't think leaders are innately creative, who are not innately creative, put it that way. Not everybody is, but leaders who are not innately creative, I think they'd have a difficult time being able to foster creativity in their teams effectively. It's also my belief that intelligence plays a critical role in creativity. And there's an interesting study, pretty famous study, Lewis Terman's famous genetic studies of genius. Sounds fancy, doesn't it? But what they, the gist of it was the researchers found that while high IQ was necessary for creativity, not all people with high IQs are creative. So, big surprise there. But, to increase the probability of being a successful entrepreneur, I think you have to be inherently creative and intelligent. Now, how do you inspire that in a team? Well, I find that devoting time for creativity is kind of the best place to start, with a team. When we dedicate meeting time specifically for creative group thinking, it has a way of cross-inspiring others. During these, these group think sessions, by leaders demonstrating that I have an open-mindedness to new ideas, I think it encourages other members of the team to do so themselves. You lead by example, right? The remaining big component as a challenge is to see the mission through to fruition. So just blathering about wonderful ideas means nothing unless there's action to determine the viability of ideas and, to see those through. And like I said just a moment ago, today's dreams without resolute action become tomorrow's regrets. So I think that's totally applicable in organizations.
I love that. I love that approach. And there's a little bit of a kind of that big leap concept in taking an idea, a creative idea, and turning it into action. Sometimes that leap right there is hard for people to make. But I love that you brought that up, because that is such an important part for all leaders to remember, is the creativity is not always in the brainstorming and coming up with great ideas. It's also putting them into action. Mm-hmm. That's a critical piece. Love that. Great. All right. Question number 3. How can leaders help build trust between team members or employees between each other?
Yeah, there's I would call it a corrosive effect between team members, and as a leader, I have the power to dissuade or encourage, and that is avoiding demonstrating the demonstration or demonstrations of, let's just call it narcissism. We know that narcissistic displays in part are may be competitive in nature. They may be also based on insecurities in the individual. So sarcasm, gossip, they're byproducts of narcissism. These become the tools that divide and destroy teams in interpersonal relationships. So none of these builds trust between team members. And effective leaders will start with themselves. They must lead by example. Now, this is easier said than done, I think. Because narcissism is also a very common trait for entrepreneurs. I don't think anybody else in the office here is listening, so I may exhibit a little bit of that myself. So you have to work really hard to try to overcome that. It's basically, anyone thinks that they are so smart, they should really act like it. So I think that, simple demonstration or just self-moderation, monitoring yourself, trying to keep that in check, just mindfulness, but, helping to eliminate that within your teams, just discouraging it, I think is so vital.
Very good. I like that answer. Thank you. Question number 4, would you like to share an example of a time when maybe there was kind of a perceived failure or setback or something that didn't go as planned, but you turned it into a win?
Life's just been this freaking bed of roses the whole way. So I don't know, man. Well, I tell you what, back in 2015, Continuum GRC, the company did not exist. I mentioned earlier that we incubated the platform inside the service company, Lazarus Alliance. So the flagship SaaS application was designed for audit and compliance assessments, risk management, and others, risk assessments, governance, and policy development. It was being developed. After a while of battle testing, with real companies, real auditors, companies, clients around the world, it became a rather big selling point for our service engagements. It's like, hey, we do this for you, and oh, by the way, we're not going to use spreadsheets like the other boring guys. Instead, we got this cool tooling. So, it became a big selling point. So, I had the idea that I wanted to spin off Continuum GRC into its own separate company. There were people around me that thought I had just freaking lost my mind. Why would I, share our competitive advantage with anybody who would, pay for a subscription? The platform's built for competitors of Lazarus Alliance. So why would I share our tools? Well, 7 years later, we let them white label it, manage their own customers, things like that. And I tell you, we just continue to grow. We've become the world's only FedRAMP authorized, state ramp authorized SaaS application in 26 languages. So, we're, I don't know, we just, we haven't looked back. It's been a good decision.
Well, I'd say that's a big win. Yeah, that's impressive. I like that. Question number 5, tell us a little bit about your first job.
Well, that would require providing the answer to the most common security challenge questions by banks.
That's true. Good point. Good point.
Good luck with me getting to dish on that. However, what I can tell you is my very first full-time real job was in the United States Air Force as a flight line electronics technician on B-52H model bombers. So
nice.
Anyway,
well, thank you for your service, first of all, but it sounds like that's kind of where you got your start with your career to some degree, at least. So
it was interesting. I was in school, electronics and things, and I'm an 18-year-old, right? And in college and whatnot. Anyways, I'd go around to these audio-visual shops and stuff, and they're like, "Go away, kid, you don't have experience." Well, how in the hell do I get experience?
Right.
So I decided, well, let's see what the Air Force is all about. And I spent 6 years there as an enlisted person, and did well and enjoyed it, and that took me into other technical spaces and basically led me here.
Nice. Very good. All right. Well, Michael, thank you so much for taking time to join us on the podcast today. How can people find you?
So I appreciate it, Sean. It's been my pleasure. 2 websites, LazarusAlliance.com, LazarusAlliance.com, Continuum GRC, CONTINUUMGRC.com. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn, and be a pleasure to help you out.
Great. Glad you can do that, as we mentioned at the beginning. So thank you again. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, go to teamengagementpodcast.com. We also invite you to subscribe or follow the podcast, whether you're listening to the audio version or watching the video version, either way. Once again, we remind you to have humility to learn and then courage to act on what you've learned. Thanks so much for joining us today. Have a great day.